Hello friends, this is Fox Nivels Studios. Today we are here with third part of Naruto Omnipotent God. Now story starts from here. Before stating story, please subscribe our channel and press bell icon for new update. We are eating ramen today, Naruto stated as he sat at the head of their long dining table as he looked at his group that has grown in number during this past few weeks. Most of them groaned. Not again, they thought. But some shrugged with indifference. For them, it doesn't matter. Because food is food. One of those people is Altria, the resident glutton. Not again, Dad. Come on. I know it's your favorite food, but it's unhealthy, Lilith reasoned. But arguing against Naruto and his ramen, he will never change his position. Nonsense. I am God and I have declared once that ramen is the food of the gods, all flavors included. That was my will and it still stands. Another groan, this time, from Leviathan and Mordred. Somehow, I feel that you're abusing your authority, Leviathan muttered while Mordred nodded in agreement. Nero was indifferent. She eats whatever is available. Besides, she also enjoys ramen, but not as much as Naruto. He is unbeatable in that competition. Nonsense, I'm just doing the right thing. The right thing, my ass, Mordred grumbled to herself.
What was that, my dear daughter? Something about someone's rear. Is someone asking for a full day of spanking? Naruto's eerily calm face stared at Mordred's, who began to sweat and feel a slightly heavy pressure falling upon her. Nothing, father. Nothing at all. She shook her head fast while Naruto gained an innocent smile on his face. Thought so. This is a preview of one of many everyday things that happen inside their hideout for the last 45 years. It is nothing new. Every day there is something going on. Their lives are never boring because each one of the residents has their unique attitudes that differ from each other. Even when Naruto became God, he still preferred ramen instead of anything else, something that you cannot take away from him. So, whenever someone argues about his ramen, he can get very scary. Usually, his daughters are the victims, specifically Mordred and Leviathan, sometimes Lilith as well. They never learn, and as Naruto said, war is easier than daughters. Kagaya and Altria most certainly agree. Equals 15 x mdxxxvii equals. So, Kurohime, how do you find this place? Lilith sat next to the black-haired Nekosho at a bench above the cliff facing north. Her father brought the Nekosho to their hideout a few weeks ago, and when she woke up, Lilith provided some clothes for her and luckily, they fitted on her. She said her name is Kurohime, and she lived with her parents in the underworld, 50 kilometers north of the city of Lilith, and Lilith, being the namesake of that city, cracked a smile. And when she introduced herself as Lilith, the mother of all devils herself, Kurohime was shocked that it was the mother of all devils herself that gave her new clothes and that she was living somewhere hidden from the world. She never met Lilith before, because she wasn't born yet when the Great War started, and Lilith subsequently vanished from the face of the underworld, but her parents, now dead, told her stories of a kind, caring, and loving woman that took care of the populace, as opposed to her late husband, Lucifer. It is very calming, my lady. I feel like I am at home. It is like I do not want to go anywhere but here, she replied as they looked at the birds and the ocean, the breeze touching their skin like a soft caress. About your family, Lilith started, but Kurohime immediately spoke. It is fine, my lady. It happened, and we cannot turn back time. Besides, you all accepted me as a part of your family, especially your father. She gave Lilith a small smile as she remembered Lilith's father, God himself. It was very mind-numbing for her, to see the one that created everything, living with his family in the middle of nowhere, and that he is not what she thought he was. She heard stories of God decimating the two heavenly dragons like it was no one's business, and honestly, she feared him at first, but that was immediately thrown out of the window when he treated her like his own family, and she loved every moment of it. Her father and mother died in the early days of the Civil War. They were killed in an accident when they were hunting for venison. They got dragged into a battle between the rebels and the loyalists near her village. And when she heard the news, she realized that she is the last of her species. Her mother was a pure Nekosho and her father was a Nekomata that lived in Heian-kyo. In the land of the rising sun, she didn't know what to do but live her life. Her parents taught her what to do should anything happen to them. But soon, their village was raided by the old Satan faction members, conscripting people to fight for them. And of course, her and her fellow villagers fought the loyalists. She killed a number of them, but she became too tired to continue, so she hid and ran away. But she passed out at the outskirts of her village, where Naruto and Scathach found her. You're pregnant, My lady, she stated, a bit shocked that she never noticed until now, the bump that is growing, and now, she thought to herself, who is the father? Yes, I am, you never noticed. Kuroheim shook her head while Lilith smiled. That's why I gave you some of my clothes, they won't fit me as long as I have my son in here. She placed her hands on her stomach and smiled fondly to herself. Who is the father, if you don't mind, my lady? Kuroheim asked, and Lilith stared at her for a few moments with a sly smile on her face. Who is the only man here? Kuroheim's eyes widened, the man she thought to be her new father, God, or Naruto as he is named. But he's your father, right? Lilith's smile widened, and she nodded. And, we are not humans, our body structure differs from them, so there is no problem with that. Besides, I love him more than anything, and I will forever regret leaving him and going to the underworld. I loved him more than a daughter should ever since I was a young woman, but then there was my half-brother, Lucifer, and my young mind thought he was perfect, the worst mistake I ever did. I cannot believe I actually loved that bastard. Should Gabriel learn of it, she will kill me. She loves father like I do, but she never tried to tell him, and I do not know how devastated she was when father left heaven, and I do not want to know, she sighed sadly to herself. What did the others say, my lady? Kuroheim asked, avoiding the topic of Gabriel. They were happy, especially mother because she finally can have a grandchild to spoil, or as she said to me, Leviathan was happy too, but I can feel she is a little jealous. I cannot blame her. After all, I, her, and Gabriel all love our father more than any humans would accept. Though I believe Leviathan would make a move soon, and I will have a new nephew to play with my new son in the coming years, she stated with a small smile. Equals XXII x MDXXXVIII equals. Scathach sat by the cliff, watching as the sea battered the rocks below, as the birds fly across the sky, and as the wind danced with the trees, wondering about things, about herself, about Naruto, about her pride, and about her stupidity. She knew that when the first time she was defeated by Naruto easily, she will never be able to defeat him in combat, but she still tried. She tried 100 times, 100 times she failed, she never managed to lay a hand on him, not once, not ever, but she cannot admit that to herself. Her pride as a warrior and god-killer prevents her from admitting defeat. Her blind arrogance when she first met Naruto was the beginning of her downfall. She is so proud of herself that she put up a strong front against Naruto, but he knew she was crumbling inside, one small push and she will crumble. It was during the 3rd century before the birth of Christ. Naruto told her who he really is, she became infuriated at herself because it was God himself. The creator of everything that she tried to kill, it was there when she knew. She will never be able to fight him, much less injure him. But her pride took over her and she never, not even once, admitted defeat. Then Kagaya heard of it, she immediately tried to kill Scathach personally. She was so angry at the audacity of the warrior queen that she broke a number of Scathach's bones and left her crippled and unconscious for a month. She would have killed Scathach if not for Naruto shutting Kagaya down. His wrath was uncontained and Kagaya almost received his wrath in full force. His patience at the time was so thin, and stress took over his emotions as he tries to complete the system in utmost perfection, which he did, during the 1st century after the birth of Christ, when the Son died for mankind. When Kagaya made peace with Scathach after she woke up, the warrior queen offered to live in heaven for an undisclosed amount of time, as a sign of good faith, for preventing her imminent death at the hands of the goddess and mother of the universe. Naruto accepted, and for 2 centuries, she lived in heaven, watching Naruto as he ruled over the heavens, and the universe itself. As a queen herself, she felt admiration to him, as he ruled how a just king should be. He was the personification of how a king should be. And she begrudgingly respected him, but still, she never admitted that Naruto defeated her 100 times. Her pride as a warrior was bordering utter stupidity, and the arrogance she had when she first met Naruto lingered, but it never manifested in full again because she began to crumble inside, so she created a strong front to hide it, but Naruto saw through it. However, knowing him, he didn't talk about anything, but Kagaya did, and she confronted Scathach in secret. Lilith knew of it, as her mother, Kagaya, told her everything about it, and she thought Scathach's obvious foolish stupidity and pride will ruin her if she doesn't do anything about herself. This was her thoughts as she observed the warrior queen from above a tree branch she sat upon. When she first learned that Skathich once tried to kill her father, she got angry at the audacity of that woman. She once tried to kill Naruto, then now, she is living with them. Then Kagaya explained, and she even got angrier but calmed down, as she decided to fix the mess that is named Skathich personally, even if it means beating the warrior queen literally. She hovered down towards the ground and walked where the warrior queen sat. Once she reached her, she stood at her side and Skathich glanced up before returning her gaze back to the sea. Her instincts are telling her to run away from Lilith, but she never runs away from anything, and as Lilith said to Kagaya, her stupidity will ruin her if not kill her. You love my father, why haven't you confessed to him yet? The mother said you decided to tell him, but why haven't you done so? Asked Lilith as she stared at the sea as well, but Skathich remained silent. She doesn't like where the conversation is going. The silent type 1C, you are more stupid than I thought. That got a reaction from her as Skathich snapped her towards Lilith, but the eldest of Naruto's children didn't flinch. Why would she? Lilith is one of the most powerful beings in the universe. Skathich is nothing but an ant to her. What did you say? Skathich asked in a low tone, but Lilith ignored her. As my mother said, your hubris will be the end of you. Your audacity of showing blind and sheer arrogance against my father more than a millennium ago was laughable, and your sheer stupidity and pride will destroy your heart if you do not act on it. You cannot admit defeat. Why? Your pride as a warrior and a queen compels you to not admit defeat. I can understand that, but you're different. With you, the only words I can say is that your pride and stupidity shrouds your reasoning, which prevents your heart to tell what it truly feels. Lilith said, anger laced in her voice, but she calmed herself down as she noticed Skathich's fists are clenched hard that it is turning white. You are angry, but face the real world, girl. You are stupid and too prideful for your own heart's good. Unless you act on what your heart tells you, you will always be a stupid girl in my eyes, not befitting of receiving the feelings of my father. You are old, older than any humans living today, but nothing changed. You are immature and an imbecile. You blamed my father for your immortality when he had nothing to do with it. Being defeated by my father, then subsequently, my mother did not do anything to your pathetic pride and your pathetic self. You cannot even tell him your feelings because, as I said repeatedly, you are so stupid that I cannot understand what did my father ever saw in you. Skathich loathed being called a girl. For her, it was demeaning and rude. That was rather uncalled for. Skathich spat, but Lilith just scoffed at her. Uncalled for. Does the truth hurt that much? If so, then deal with it. After all, you did a good job of keeping everything to yourself for hundreds of years. You are lucky your true age never showed its evidence, after all. Lilith didn't manage to finish her sentence as Skathich attacked her by swiping Guy Bolg at her, but Lilith blocked the red spear with her right arm like it was nothing. Ho! The stupid little girl bares her fangs. Interesting, but you are still weak, she taunted, still blocking the spear from touching her face. Skathich then jumped back while glared angrily towards Lilith, who simply stood where she was, completely dismissing her presence. I am not weak, she shouted at Lilith, who scoffed. Yes, you are not weak physically. You are a powerful warrior, but you are weak inside. Your resolve is weak, and your heart is weak. Therefore, I consider that you are weak. Skathich charged towards Lilith, intending on impaling her, forgetting that Lilith is pregnant with Naruto's child. But before even the warrior queen got close to Lilith, she was sent backward, crashing to the ground as Lilith appeared below her sight and elbowed her abdomen, sending her back. When Skathich sat up, she spat blood and wiped her mouth. Meanwhile, Lilith just watched her. What is holding you back? Lilith asked, dodging another stab to left with a minimum movement which began to infuriate Skathich more and more by the second. Nothing is holding me back. Skathich angrily spat as her spear began to glow red, exuding a red aura that feels like death, while Lilith raised an eyebrow at her rising power. If not for the very powerful barrier surrounding their island, Skathich would have been already sensed by many beings. Thus, Lilith then began to release her power as well, with a mix of white and black aura surrounded her. The others inside the house was stopped by Kagaya as she knew what was going on, while Naruto sat inside his study, consciously reinforcing the barrier to prevent any power signature from spilling out. What are you afraid of? Skathich charged towards Lilith, ignoring her question, Guy Bolg shining brightly. Then, she positioned herself into a throwing position while charging, intending to throw Guy Bolg towards Lilith, and she did. In one swift and smooth throw, the red spear began to fly towards Lilith at high speeds, but, before it even reached Lilith, her wings blasted open, creating a very strong gust of wind, canceling the flight of the spear, and it was thrown back. Scathach was also pushed back at a tree. After the wind died down, she opened her eyes and saw Guy Bolg lying down near her feet. Then, she looked towards Lilith. It was the first she saw her wings, 12 feathered wings. 6 white and 6 black. Her wings signify the balance between good and evil. When she was young, she only had 2, but as she grew older, wiser, and powerful, the number of her wings began to grow. It wasn't even 1,000 years ago when she got her last and 6th pair, but she trained herself in secrecy. It was during the days when she began to realize the truth about her husband. Then, at the beginning of the Great War, she knew everything. "I am not afraid of anything," muttered by Scathach as she picked up her spear and slowly walked towards Lilith while gripping her spear tightly. Lilith sighed sadly to herself before waving her left hand, and Scathach was immediately disarmed. Guy Bolg suddenly vanished from her grasp. Then Lilith appeared in front of her. Being slightly taller than the warrior queen, she looked down on her red eyes before slapping her face with her right hand. "Do not lie on my face. What are you afraid of?" Scathach gripped her spear tightly, but she remained silent. Lilith was beginning to get very annoyed. Slap. Lilith slapped her again. This time, on the other side of her face with her left hand. Scathach's cheeks began to redden, but she cannot do anything. The sheer pressure Lilith is pouring down at her disabled her movements. It was so heavy she cannot move a muscle. "Answer me," said Lilith. Her voice was low, and her fists clenched in anger. But Scathach remained silent. It is as if she lost her voice, so Lilith sighed in exasperation. "We are not getting anywhere with this," she started with a sigh before she continued. "Scathach, I will not apologize for beating you and for what I have said, but I am going to ask this of you. Do you love my father?" She asked, placing both her hands above Scathach's shoulder, whilst staring at her eyes, gray to red, but the warrior queen evaded Lilith's gaze a minute later because Lilith's eyes changed to red. "Look at me, Scathach, and answer me. Do you love my father?" She repeated. Her hands are now on Scathach's cheeks, forcing the warrior queen to look on her eyes. "It is a very simple question. Just answer it." What is going on outside?" Nero asked while rubbing her eyes. She was very tired from continuously producing plans since last year, and it is slowly taxing her sleep. "Lilith and Scathach are having a conversation," answered Altria before drank her tea, made by Kagaya. "Conversation? I know what a one-sided battle feels like if there is one," Nero muttered as she sat beside Mordred, who continued to read a large, thick book about the history of the Roman Empire, both East and West, as penned by Naruto, written in Latin, without biases from any sides, just facts and details of what happened, from the Roman kingdom, to Republic, to Empire with Augustus, to its territorial height with Trajan, to the division of East and West, to the downfall of the West with the death of Romulus Augustulus, and to the downfall of the East with Constantine XI Palaiologos, which was only 85 years ago. "Leave them be, Nero. We're lucky Lilith didn't do that to us," Mordred said, still looking down at her book. "Didn't do what?" she asked while she took a glass of water before she drank it. "That." Mordred pointed towards the window to her left, and Nero saw Lilith staring down at Scathach. Her tired eyes widened. Of course, she understood what was going on. "Oh, I see," she muttered before turning away from the window and took a book that is lying on her side. "The Key of Solomon. Interesting," Nero said as she opened the grimoire and began to read everything inside. Then Leviathan saw it. "I don't know why they are attributing that book to Solomon. He didn't write it. My father did," she stated as she sat beside Altria, who nodded at her as greeting. "Praetor did. It is in Latin though, the one in my time. Lingua Latina. Yes, he wrote it during that time period. Then Michael gave it to the leaders of the early church in Rome. Just after your so-called persecution of Christians and Jews," answered Kagaya, and Nero nodded in understanding. She didn't want to think about what history has branded her, so she didn't think about it much longer, as she has already come to acknowledge that she has done great and terrible things. She doesn't deny any of it, but there is only one thing all of them knew that is not true and has no factual basis: that Nero consciously persecuted Christians. Only her enemies said so after she died, and that is what most Christians knows today. So, these spells and rituals actually work? Nero asked, and Leviathan nodded. Only against devils, and other demons from the underworld, the former Mao answered. But, you are a devil, so, Leviathan shook her head before she replied. Not anymore. I have not been a devil for 30 years, father had seen to that, the only devil living here is Graphia. Do you? I do. Scathach finally answered Lilith's question, and the eldest of Naruto's children sighed in content, but there is still another question that needs to be answered. Then why don't you tell him so? What are you afraid of? She asked the warrior queen, who went silent again. By this time, Lilith's arms are crossed, she patiently waited for an answer. I'm afraid of being rejected, she muttered quietly, but Lilith's hearing heard her perfectly. Rejected? Why would he reject you? He did not reject mother. They were enemies once. He did not reject me, his eldest daughter. He did not reject Leviathan, his third daughter. He did not reject Altria. She loved him the moment she met him. He did not reject Mordred, his fourth daughter. He did not reject Nero, the one that many say started the persecution of his followers. And lastly, he did not reject Jean, his most devout follower. In fact, he accepted her the moment her soul entered his presence in heaven. Also, I'm sure he won't reject Gabriel, his second daughter. So, tell me, Scathach, why would he reject you? Scathach remained silent, contemplating on what Lilith said to her, and she found that what Lilith said truly made sense. If he accepted his daughters, why wouldn't he accept her, a stranger and a fool who tried to kill him once? But doubts remain in her heart, and Lilith noticed it. Don't worry, I'll help you, little sister. Equals 3x mdxxxvii equals. Graphia, hand me that pen, please, thank you, said Naruto as he looked down at what he was doing and is pleased. Nero then entered the room, carrying a stack of papers. Graphia looked at her before they nodded at each other to acknowledge each other's presence. Hello Nero, what are those? He asked, while still looking down at the map that Nero made. It was quite a large map, spread across the table in the middle of his planning room. Nero placed down the stack of papers on his table and went to Naruto's side. Just some of the things I made. The coat of arms is also there, done and perfected, and additionally, I also have something drawn in one of the papers. You'll see them later, answered Nero while Naruto looked down at her. Being quite tall as she only reached his chest, his eyes carry mirth in them. Nero, my dear, do you even know how large this city you've drawn? Amusement can be seen in his eyes while Nero snorted, which was rather unbecoming of her. Of course, I do, who do you think I am? She haughtily said to him, in which he rolled his eyes with a small smile. My Nero, that is who. As usual, she blushed and turned away. She never wins in this kind of conversation with Naruto. Shut up. Naruto laughed, while Graphia behind him covered her mouth to hide her giggle. Alright, what have I told you about moderating things? As I said, my praetor, I do not like moderation. Besides, you said to let my imagination run wild, and this is the result, she stated while Naruto nodded as he hummed in understanding. That I did. Anyway, what did you name this city? Naruto asked her with his arms crossed over his chest. Urbs Imperialis Etherius, answered Nero with a smile on her face. The imperial city of Etherius. Interesting, and somehow, feels right, though I'm still wondering about the size, because I did say I wanted to a city in an island, in the middle of a large lake. To build a city this large, he trailed on, looking through the details silently. Then Nero spoke. You haven't seen the map of the entire landmass I wanted you to make, said Nero while Naruto immediately looked at her. Please don't tell me you oversized it. The former empress merely smiled while Naruto sighed in exasperation. Look at the map beneath this city map. And Naruto rolled the large map and saw that underneath the city map is another map of the same size, but this time, instead of a city, is an entirely new landmass that is located east of Nippon. 6 million square kilometers of land. This is larger than the Roman Empire's largest territorial extent under Trajanus, said Graphia as she looked over the map Nero made with contemplation. Exactly, but this is only one country, unlike my former empire which centered in Italia, in Roma. Now, as you see, I already divided this land into several regions, provinces, duchies, or whatever you want to call them, stated Nero as she pointed every division of land that she made. Graphia, Call the others, said Naruto, and the self-proclaimed maid of God immediately left the planning room. During Graphia's early days with Naruto's group, everything was explained to her by Kagaya and her daughters, and when she met Naruto formally after his excursion in the underworld, she and him had a talk about himself and his family, and to say she was shocked is one of the many understatements that has been said in their hideout. Then a week later, she decided that she will be the personal assistant of Naruto, with the encouragement of Lilith and Leviathan, and Lilith's reasoning to Graphia is that the silver-haired woman served her once, why not just work for her father, the highest member of the family, and she agreed, seeing the reason and it made sense to her. Naruto tried to dissuade Graphia saying that she can live in their house normally, but she insisted and said otherwise for days until he relented. It's weird having a maid, muttered Naruto with a small sigh. Why? Did you not have any servants in heaven? No. But I have angels that are willing to do anything what I told them. Though, I never ordered them about preparing food and cleaning house, that is all me and Kagaya Haim, sometimes my other children do them too, but having a maid feels different. I mean, Lilith told her to follow my orders every time, and I don't have orders to give, well, except to keep the house clean, and what she does about it, you can see the result, our house is so clean, he was about to continue but Graphia entered with the others following her. Soon, they all circled the table, looking at Nero and Naruto expectantly. Nero. Naruto called to the former empress and nodded. Right. So, as I said to my praetor, I made this map of the landscape I wanted him to create, so please, look at it. The others did, and they saw how large it is, and the location as well. It is located where their house is currently standing, somewhere in the Pacific. 6 million square kilometers. Are you for real, sister? That's larger than your former empire's greatest extent, Mordred said while the others continued to look at the map. What are those divisions for? Jean asked, wondering about the regions that divided the landmass via borderlines. Just like a normal country, it has provinces or regions. See this island at the center of this lake. Nero pointed at the center of the map, and they all nodded. That is the entire city that I have drawn earlier. So, the capital city is isolated from the rest of the land. Defending that place would be easy, a large navy on the lake and the army behind the walls, but we could be isolated and starved out. Altria surmised with a hand on her chin, thinking about the map and its details. This city is on an island. Its distance from any point of the capital island's coast to the mainland's coast is 10 kilometers from all sides, and the entire city has an area of 70,000 square kilometers, and inside the walled city, we can have wide areas of agriculture, manufacturing, etc., plus the vast canal network that I planned, which could be used for fishing inside the city. It is a city that can sustain itself without the need of other places to provide food and supplies for it, and the island it would be sitting on is 75,000 square kilometers in total area, that leaves us 5,000 square kilometers of extra land for other uses. And it will not be isolated because we are going build 5 great bridges forming a regular pentagon if you draw straight lines from the 5 points surrounding the island, connecting it to the rest of the land, Nero answered Altria, who nodded in understanding. So, from what you just said and what I see here, the reason why there are only 5 great bridges and not 6 connecting the mainland to the capital island is this 30-kilometer wide river sourcing from the lake towards the south, is that right? Leviathan asked, and Nero nodded. Exactly, and with that river, we are also going to have a bridge crossing it, which would be part of the ring road that will connect the 5 great bridges at the mainland. Leviathan nodded. She can see that there is a ring road around the coastline of the land. Now, going back to the divisions. This city and the lands on another side of the lake would be the capital region. The total area is 300,000 square kilometers. I'd call it the Imperial Capital Region or simply Etherius, named after the city itself. Its northern border is a mountain range, then in its western border, which is bordered by the capital region, and that western mountain range several hundred kilometers to the west would be Beauclair. Sounds French, right? Nero looked to Jean, who nodded before she asked a question. Considering that there are regions and cities that are known for special things, as you have done, the capital region being the center of everything, what would Beauclair is known for, if I may ask? Good question, sister. Beauclair in its entirety would be known for its wines. It would be full of vineyards and the serene environment if everything goes my way. The southern border is a forest. The region's total area is 500,000 square kilometers. The mountain range is named Massif du Mont Jeanne d'Arc, and its regional capital, La Pucelle. Jean had a bright smile on her face, mirroring the smile on Nero's face. The others smiled too. I guess that is my place then. They all laughed with smiles on their faces before Nero went serious again and continued her explanation. Next, here on the west of Beauclair, west of Massif du Mont Jeanne d'Arc, is the Gold Coast. Its regional capital would be Latium at the coast. The Gold Coast would have a total area of 600,000 square kilometers and would be bordered by a river at the north, a mountain range on the east, another river on the south, and the sea at the west. Nero's pointing finger then moved to another place. Pendragon, the northernmost region. The region would have a total of 1 million square kilometers, including its outlying islands, and its regional capital would be the city of Camelot. To the south, it is bordered by another mountain range that stretches from the northernmost peak of Massif du Mont Jeanne d'Arc to the eastern coastline, and I named it the Imperial Mountains, the northern border of the capital region. To the southwest, it is bordered with the river, which is also the northern border of the Gold Coast, and to the north, east, and west, it is bordered by the sea, said Nero as she then moved on to another part of the map. To the eastern border of the capital region lies the plains of Mithrim, and its regional capital is Lilium at the eastern coast. The region has total 700,000 square kilometers, including its outlying islands. Its northern border is the Imperial Mountains, to the east is the sea, to the south is a river and a forest. To the south of the capital region lies two regions that are separated by the Great River. Let's start with first. On the western shore of the Great River, south of the forest of Beauclair is the Reach, and the regional capital is Dunscaith. The region has a total area of 900,000 square kilometers. The eastern border, as I have said, is the Great River. To the north is the forest of Beauclair. To the west and south is the Massif du Mont Jeanne d'Arc, which bends towards southeast starting from the forest of Beauclair. To the western shore of the Great River lies the province of Lucifuge, with the regional capital named Arcturus. The capital region makes up its northwestern border, while the northern border is the river and forest in the south Mithrim, its eastern border is the sea, and its southern border is a mountain range, the Grey Mountains. It has a total area of 600,000 square kilometers. West of the Reach lies the Dragonlands, and its regional capital is named Colbrand. The region is bordered by the Gold Coast at the north, the Massif du Mont Jeanne d'Arc to the east, the sea to the west, a river to the south. The region has a total area of 700,000 square kilometers. South the Dragonlands and the Reach is Zebel, with its regional capital being Seraphim, the southernmost city. To the northwest, it is bordered by the Dragonlands with the river. To the northeast, it is bordered by the Massif du Mont Jeanne d'Arc. To the south and east is the sea. And it has a total area of 400,000 square kilometers. And lastly, Tucson, its regional capital is Sansritor. To the north, it borders the Grey Mountains. To the west is the Great River. To the south is the Ethereal Bay where the Great River enters the sea, and to the east is the sea. It has a total area of 300,000 square kilometers, including the outlying islands. And that is indeed 6 million square kilometers in total area, said Lilith, and everyone nodded. It is, but first, we need focus on the city first. It is no use spreading the population immediately. We need to build up the center and centralize everything to the capital, which is why it is on the very center of the map. We will have a capital with an area of 70,000 square kilometers. Millions of people can live inside that city with more spaces to spare. Therefore, we will only focus on building up the capital before expanding to the other planned regions. By the time we are ready to expand, we must make sure the capital is fully established and organized to be the center of our long-term plans. And with the technology Naruto had brought with him from our homeland before he created this universe, it will be very easy, said Kagaya with a very serious tone, and they all nodded, but questions came to their heads. Technology. What kind is it, mother? Like that. Lilith pointed to the ceiling, where their source of light is coming from. It was a light bulb. Yes, and much more. The world hasn't even discovered how to make the light bulb, let alone produce electrical energy for production and daily use. But humans are coming very close to fully understand those things. After all, things will get discovered and invented. Human knowledge is increasing fast. In a few centuries, this world will see a very big change on how they see the world and its resources, answered Kagaya, and Naruto nodded in agreement. Exactly what she said, and I already showed Nero the things I wanted to add, and she has fully understood it all. But we will talk about them later when I have raised island where the city will be standing, said Naruto, and they all nodded. Right. So what I wanted is that you should make the center first, and what I mean is the center of the city, our home. Nero then placed back the city map above the table and pointed at the center. Why? Mordred asked. So, we can build the city, circle by circle, starting from the very center, where we would live, plan and govern everything, and this is what I wanted it to look like. The former empress then rolled the two maps and saw a large canvas spread across the table. This time, it was a painting of a palace that has 10 surrounding towers with spires that forms a decagon if a straight line is drawn from one tower to another, and those towers are connected towards the main palace via marble arch bridges. The palace has 9 tiers with the dubbed Tower of Heaven at the center of it. The palace has also been adorned by the banners depicting the coat of arms that Altria and the others made, from pennants at the top of the towers and the domes to the walls with the large banners hanging downwards. The palace is not a plain tower. It has a very large base, and the higher it goes, the smaller it becomes, like a pyramid. The rest of the group looked at the painting with much interest. This is, Mordred trailed on. Our future house. Do you like it? Nero asked. What can I say? You planned this quite thoroughly, eh, Nero? I love it, but what is the name of this place? Leviathan asked, and Nero smirked. The Empyrean Palace. The Tower of Heaven, named after Empyrean, the 7th and highest level of heaven. Empyrean, huh? It sounds about right, and it looks like Father's original palace at heaven, said Lilith as she perused the painting's amount of detail. Because I modeled it after the original one, with several additions, answered the former empress with a proud smile on her face. And it would be seen clearly from a very far distance, Nero added, and Naruto looked at her with a raised eyebrow. How tall is it? 2.5 kilometers. Everyone looked at Nero dryly and she shrugged her shoulders. What? She asked. You want us to live in a 2.5 kilometer tall building, with how many of us here? 11. 12 if you count Lilith's upcoming child. Altria asked. That's going to be a pain to clean up, that's for sure, Mordred stated, and the others nodded. Exactly. This place doesn't need to be cleaned at all. With magic and seals at our disposal, it will look as new as possible for literally eternity, said Nero said with a bright smile on her face. You really do not know moderation, do you? Kagaya asked with amusement on her face. Nope. Besides, it is going to be our home, our future children, grandchildren, and others. It is also going to be the center of our government and our businesses, so it is going to be a very busy place in the future, explained Nero. So, the names of the planned regions aside, what do we call the entire place, and I mean the entire land that you planned? Jean asked, and the others nodded in agreement. Sacrum Imperium Etherium, the Holy Etherian Empire. Somehow Lady Nero, I think you got that from the Holy Roman Empire in Europe, said Graphia. Bah, that place is in no way holy, nor Roman, nor an empire, sardonically said by Nero. Plus, it is in Germania. How could it be Roman if the capital is not Rome and that Rome is not part of that collection of kingdoms? The Byzantine Empire had more right to call itself Roman because Rome was part of its old territory, even if Rome is not its capital, said Nero with anger. Look at Roma now. While I like the way it looks right now, full art and culture, especially with that new basilica being built at the Vatican Hill and the other beautiful structures that dotted the city, I hate the fact that the remnants of my old empire are just left in ruins. My golden palace, gone, everything that I left, gone, I have nothing left in that city but old memories, memories that want to forget because I have a new life now. Naruto placed an arm around Nero's shoulders and pulled her closer to him. It's all right, Nero, we're here for you, said Naruto with a bright smile on his face. The others mirrored his smile as well, making Nero smile again. I didn't know I needed that, thank you. And before we can talk about other things, let me say that you, my praetor, will rule this new place we want to create. Therefore, I want to make your official name in this place as Imperator Caesar Nerutus Maximus Pius Felix Invictus Augustus Optimus Princeps. Equals IV X MDXXXVIII equals. Leviathan sat on her bed, quietly meditating about the things in her life, from the very beginning to the present. Unknown to her, Kagaya entered her room and sat near her, and that was when she noticed her. She was startled a bit but calmed down immediately. Mother, what brings you here? She asked while Kagaya simply smiled at her. I'm here to talk. About what? About you, said Kagaya with a pointed look while Leviathan's eyes widened with the tone of her mother's voice. She was insinuating something, and she knew what it was. Lilith told you. Yes, she did, and I'm surprised that haven't made your own move. I thought you wanted children, not counting the ones you had during your tenure in the underworld. I already said that it is fine for me, because I want to raise my grandchildren, something I never experienced, and Lilith is now carrying a child. Soon, I'll have a grandkid to spoil, so try to keep up with her. So, are you going to do it? Kagaya asked, clearly interested in Leviathan's next moves in the coming days. Yes. Then go. What are you waiting for? His birthday is coming. I don't even remember his age now, and he plans to start building on that day. Tonight. Yes. Now let us go. Lunch is waiting. Nero is cooking. Did you cook this, Nero? I don't believe it, teased Altria as she ate her lunch with the others. Can't it, mother? Mother. You are older than I am. Altria exclaimed as she was taken aback by Nero's answer. But you look older and more mature than my youthful body, mother. I think those watermelons you call breasts agree, don't you think, sister? Nero nudged Mordred, who is more than happy to agree. Yes, absolutely. I mean, father did make us related to each other by changing out entire bodies inside, so yeah, she is indeed our mother, right, mother? Said Mordred with a devious smirk on her face as she looked towards Altria with a sly look on her face, and it annoyed the King of Knights badly. This is the scene that Leviathan and Kagaya came in, much to the white-haired goddess' exasperation. Some things never change. Meanwhile, Naruto remained quiet, having gotten used to it, but a fond smile graced his face, as there are things that never change, and he hopes they never will. Then, there is Mordred. She became a loudmouth like he was. She has changed from what she used to act, several hundreds of years ago. I know I have a small pair of breasts unlike mother's huge ones, but they're rather cute and father enjoys them just the same as the others. Yeah, she changed a lot. What? Naruto sputtered. His train of thought immediately vanished. You didn't hear me, father. I said. No. I heard you. What on the nine hells are you two talking about during lunch? He looked at Nero and Mordred with wide eyes. About our. Mordred looked at Nero. Breasts. Nero finished. Eat your lunch. Lilith's voice was dark, and an aura of darkness is covering her. Her black hair is also turning white. Or else, the two nodded immediately. They know the rule of not pissing off a pregnant woman, much less if they are like Lilith. Lilith, thank you. Suddenly, Lilith's demeanor turned to a complete opposite and she gave Naruto a bright smile. No problem, Dad, she exclaimed and continued eating, making the others sweet-dropped at her behavior. She's a crazy woman, Mordred thought while sharing a look with Nero. Damn idiots. Altria thought to herself. Definitely my daughter. Kagaya thought as shook her head. Jean giggled quietly to herself. Do I become like that when if I get pregnant by my father? Leviathan thought as she looked at Lilith's hair. From darkest black, it is slowly becoming white. Lady Lilith, why is your hair like that? The ever-curious Kuroheim asked. Huh, what about my hair? Lilith paused from eating and looked at her hair from the mirror behind her and saw that it is indeed different. What the hell happened to my hair? She asked herself. You're unlocking your true powers, Lilith, said Kagaya, and they all looked at her, except Naruto. He knew what was that about. The day you got your 12 wings was the day that the seal we put in you vanished and allowed you to freely use the abilities from my blood that flows through you. When you were born, your raw power would have been very dangerous to anyone but your father and I. Therefore, we decided to seal that part of your blood until you unlock your 12th pair of wings so that you will be able to handle the power of that you inherited from us. The more you use your powers, the faster your true appearance will appear. I noticed your eyes when you confronted Scathach here, right? Kagaya turned to Scathach, who remembered what Kagaya was talking about. Yes, it turned to red with those strange black markings, replied Scathach while Naruto looked to Lilith, who looked towards Scathach in confusion. Lilith, focus chakra on your eyes, ordered Naruto while Lilith complied immediately. Her father's voice was commanding and serious, it was something she obviously liked. When she focused chakra in her eyes, Naruto and everyone saw her dujutsu, the Sharingan. Sharingan. Huh. That settles it. Naruto exclaimed happily while they looked in confusion. What are you talking about, Dad? Lilith asked. As soon as you give birth, your mother will begin your proper training. The way he said the word, proper, didn't bode well for Lilith as she got a shiver coming down to her spine, while Kagaya smiled, and it wasn't a happy smile, so Lilith got even more afraid. She has seen what her mother is capable of, with only Naruto, her father, can quell her wrath, and she doesn't want to be on the receiving side of how wrathful Kagaya can be. Oh, shit, troublesome. Could the same thing happen to me? Leviathan curiously asked, because during the 45 years they have stayed incognito, Naruto changed her body to make her blood related to Kagaya and not only Naruto, so like Lilith, she is a true child of Naruto and Kagaya. Possibly. Maybe when you get yourself into a very emotional and stressful moment, you can unlock it, or the other one, the Byakugan, answered Naruto as he continued eating. But I once read that the Byakugan has featureless white eyes like mother, however, I have blue eyes like you. Not necessarily. I had a daughter once, a very, very long time ago, she had my eyes, and she unlocked the Byakugan. So, you have a 50-50 chance of unlocking one of them, and that means we also must train you too, and that sounds good, don't you think, Haim? Naruto looked at Kagaya whose smile merely widened, and Leviathan gulped with sweat pouring down on her face. I shouldn't have asked. Phew. I'm lucky I don't have those eyes, I don't have to train like you two will, said Mordred while Nero palmed her face and Altria shook her head because they saw Naruto's face. This idiot. Mordred. The daughter of Altria immediately looked towards Naruto and she regretted it immediately because her father was staring at her with his dujutsu active and it looked like it was drilling holes into Mordred's face. Why yes. Who said you're not going to train like they will? Naruto asked. He sounded eerily calm with his eyes not blinking and just staring at her. All of you will continue to train as you have ever since we started to live here, to keep your bodies in shape, as well as to reach your maximum potentials. Even me, my lord. Kurohime pointed at herself and Naruto nodded. Especially you, because you said to me you wanted to travel the world, and one cannot be ill-prepared for the harshness of the world, and please, just call me Naruto. Kurohime nodded in understanding. Besides, she wanted to grow stronger too, and she knows she will grow more powerful with someone like Naruto overseeing her training. Of course, Naruto-sama. Naruto nearly groaned but stopped himself. It's no use, she just changed the language, he thought, so he just nodded. Right, so, when are we going to start training? Nero asked. Lilith will start after she gives birth, while the rest of you after we've founded and settled the city properly. Later that night, Naruto's planning room equals. Imperator Caesar Narutus Maximus Pius Felix Invictus Augustus Optimus Princeps, what a ridiculous name, that Nero. Naruto chuckled to himself as he continued to write the things he needed to do as soon as the capital island has been raised, as there are things that needed to be done before and after the island has been raised, and with Nero's map, it is very easy to do, but wanted to make sure. The great, the pious and blessed, the unconquered, the majestic, and the greatest ruler, Nero doesn't know how to hold back even in names. Leviathan said as she sat in the chair beside Naruto. I would prefer a simple one, don't you think, Leviathan? Honestly, father. No, we all think that it fits fine and because we wanted to keep you hidden even if you were to rule a new country, she replied. But no one will ever recognize us, not even my other children or the other gods and beings will ever know and recognize us, as I removed their memories of our appearance, our name, and our presence, but they will feel a small sense of deja vu because they've met us before. But, they'll never know who we truly are unless I restore their memories, and I have no plans of doing that soon, but there is one person whose memories I need to restore because of our plans for this empire as Nero calls it, stated by Naruto, and Leviathan raised an eyebrow. Who? Amaterasu. Because we are close to her realm and that she is our closest relative outside of heaven and underworld, and once we've finished setting up the city and its future populace, I plan to open trade routes with her land. Then when the entire land as planned by Nero is fully completed, I'll open trade routes to the other lands of the Orient, and then, to Europe. Leviathan nodded. She can see his reason, and she remembers Amaterasu, her appearance and her audacity to get closer her father. That goddess, huh? Yes, the sun goddess, and she continues to hold that title with great power. Apollo won't last against her, even if he fights alongside Ra. I could definitely see that. Luckily it doesn't get over her head, said Leviathan. It won't, and it will never. Kagaya Haim made sure of that. What did she do? Lessons of humility. O equals V x mdxxx VIII equals. Naruto stood alone in a forest. It was dark still, the sun hasn't risen from the east yet, the timing couldn't be more perfect for him. The blonde stood silently as he stared down at a cave entrance, with the kanji for sun written above the entrance. He waited for a few more minutes before he did what he intended to do. Kuchiyos. Amaterasu Omikami. And there was a very bright flash of light from the cave, as bright as 1,000 suns, and then, she appeared. Long luscious black hair, pale skin, and golden eyes. She is wearing a white, high-collared, Haim kimono with golden accents, and a golden obi that holds everything together. Naruto merely stared at her with an apathetic expression as he waited for her to speak. Only one person can call upon me the way you did. Who are you? A soft and serene yet firm voice spoke, but instead of answering, Naruto did what he intended to do now. Kai. Memories rushed in, forgotten and buried unknowingly. They all rushed in and she was forced to kneel on both knees while Naruto watched with a small smile on his face, a reminiscent smile. He watched as tears slowly came from her eyes. Slowly, she looked upwards as her gaze turned upon Naruto's face. Hello, princess, said Naruto as the woman's eyes widened, still with tears flowing out. And no, it cannot be, you died, his smile merely widened. Things are not what they seem to be. Some things change, some things never change. It is not what I intended, but it was necessary. What are you doing here? She asked while Naruto offered his right hand. Come with me, and everything will make sense, Amaterasu. Kagaya and the others are waiting. Kagaya, Sama, yes, come. Without any hesitation, she reached for his hand and they vanished, leaving a silent and dark forest. Equals later that day equals. I see. You want to establish your own realm on Earth. I believe that is indeed a bright idea, said the goddess of the sun with a smile on her face, while Lilith raised an eyebrow. Ama-chan, just like that. You do know we would be encroaching your realm. What would your siblings and children? Lilith asked. They can go piss themselves for all I care. I am their leader. They do what I say. Besides, it is grandfather asking. I can never say no to him, the goddess said while Leviathan coughed from behind to cover her unladylike snort. Do you have any problem with what I said, Leviathan? Nothing. The former Mao continued to pretend to cough, much to the ire of Amaterasu. It is known that the two never got along well, and it goes back to the early days of the universe, before the Great Rebellion. No ever knew why. They just do not like each other very well, unlike Lilith who treats Amaterasu as her little niece, which she is, even when they are adults, as seen earlier. Meanwhile, Naruto, Kagaya, and Lilith shook their heads while the others remained silent. Leviathan, Amaterasu, enough. Naruto's voice was calm and firm. It was the tone he uses when he is serious and commanding someone. No one has been able to resist him when he uses that tone. It was one of the many ways when he shows his supreme authority, which is quite rare these days, and with it, the two were immediately silenced. Now, going back to the topic, are you sure about this, Amaterasu? She nodded with a wide smile. I shall help in creating the land as Miss Nero had planned. It should be easy enough. Maybe I could add a few of my own touches in the planned capital if it is fine, and I can cloak the entire area with my magic to hide it from the rest of the world for as long as the entire land is being created, she stated while Naruto nodded in appreciation. Good. As soon as I raise the lands and the forests, I will leave the water systems for you, Leviathan, Graphia. Lilith, you will oversee everything from above. Bring Nero with you, so that she can tell the rest of you what needs to be done. Kagaya Haim, you're with me. Altria, Mordred, your destructive abilities would be very good for terraforming and add your own touches. Jean, Scathach, Kuroheim, go with Altria and Mordred. So, everyone knows what they needed to do. All nodded. Great. Now that we all know what we needed to do, we can continue on time, understood? Yes. Now, listen and I shall tell you how we are going to do this. Equals x x mdxxx VIII equals. Doden. Daichidokaku. Naruto shouted as he slammed his hands at the ocean surface and the earth shook. Soon, a massive landmass rose from the depths, but it was molded to take shape the way Nero drew the main terrain features, but he'll leave the lesser details to the others. He then looked up and saw Lilith and Nero watching from above. Her map is floating in front of them. Praetor. The forests. Nero asked while Naruto just gave her a smile. Senpo Mokuten Haijutsu. Jukai Koten. Empowered by nature's chakra, Naruto immediately covered the entire landmass with dense woodland, ripe for terraforming and construction. He can see the mountains from the horizon as according to what Nero intended. All he needed, for now, was the diverse landscape, and one woman can do that. Kagaya Haim. I know. She flew upwards towards the sky, and by using Yomatsu Hirosaka, Kagaya called upon the elements from her dimensions to create the different terrestrial biomes of the landmass, but she needed Naruto to make sure they will function in synchronization with the Earth's diverse biomes, and using his powers above creation, he stopped time and synchronized the budding lifeforms of the new continent to the already existing ones. From above where the sun shines, Amaterasu watched the new landmass form in front of her eyes, and she was in awe. Having never seen the powers of creation as her grandfather utilized, it was a beautiful sight for her, and she would never regret making her decision to help her grandfather. From her position at the sky, she can see the entire landmass with as well as the eastern coastline of her earthly realm, the land of the rising sun, as it is the closest landmass from the newest continent that Nero planned, Etheria. She then saw her grandmother, Kagaya, fly near her, and she witnessed Kagaya's power over the elements and the way she drastically changed the landscape of land for the diversity. What do you think? Amaterasu was asked by Kagaya, who flew towards her. It is getting there, grandmother, but the water systems are still needed, she replied with a smile. Yes, and that is Leviathan's and Graphia's job. I am just watching over them. Leviathan, Graphia, your turn. Nero, Lilith, go with them, commanded Naruto mentally, and they all answered with, yes. He saw Lilith and Nero vanished from above. That was his signal to leave, and as such, he flew where Amaterasu and Kagaya are. Father, what do we do next? Mordred suddenly asked telepathically. Are you all done at the center? He asked. Yes, Mother, and the others made a quick work here. Great. Now wait for Leviathan and Graphia to finish, then your group can continue what you are doing. Understood. Graphia, freeze this entire northern mountain range. Check with Nero. She is watching over us. I shall go check the future rivers that will flow from here to feed the lake at the center. And Graphia did what she was tasked to do, with the voice of Nero dictating what must be done. She set out and began to process of permanently changing the environment of the place that was assigned to her, while Leviathan set out to create the rivers by starting at the sources inside the mountains and allowing the waters to flow out perfectly towards the paths that Naruto made, while the glaciers that Graphia is creating would be one of the main sources of freshwater, aside from the water springs that Leviathan made herself inside the mountain caverns. Winter is coming, and it was a fine chance for Graphia to fully manipulate the weather to her will, but it is up to Naruto to synchronize her creations to the already existing Earth environment. From above, Nero and Lilith watched as the rivers from the mountains began its travel towards the south, to the lake where Altria, Mordred, Jean, Scathach, and Kuroheim are waiting for the massive amount of water coming from various sources from the north so that they may continue their tasks. You think Leviathan created too many rivers? Lilith asked, but Nero shook her head. No, it is perfectly fine. Besides, Praetor will stabilize everything once we're all finished, replied Nero with a content sigh. Everything is going to the plan. Tell me more about the lake, said Lilith. Her bump has become noticeable in these past few months, and Nero was a little jealous, but ignored it and answered. Basically, it would be our main port, our main source of fish until we've expanded to the coastlines, our main source of freshwater until Praetor creates the dams soon. Its waters would also flow into the large and wide canals I mapped out for the city where we could do many things. Our fishing boats, transport ferries, merchant ships, voyaging ships, and naval ships would also be able to traverse the main canal pathways, but the smaller ones are exclusively for small boats and ferries, stated Nero as they continued to watch Leviathan and Graphia do their tasks. I thought the capital would be enclosed by 100-meter concentric circular walls. What use are the walls if ships can pass through the canals beneath the walls? That's precisely why the canal entrances to the cities would be heavily fortified, much like every other entrance. You'll see when Praetor have raised the walls. But, before I forgot, no canal would reach our personal district at the heart of the city. Our own district would have its own canal network not connected to the lake, but to the palace, powered by magic. What for? Aesthetics. Yes. A large volume of water is coming down from the north. Lady Leviathan has finished her task up there, stated by Kuroheim as she watched the waters coming fast. Good. Let us wait until the water has settled down before doing the next part of our task, said by Altria as she stood near her, watching the new rivers fed the new lake. The Lake Uzumaki as Nero called it. So, today would go on the history books as the day that this empire was founded, said Amaterasu with a small smile as they watched the action below. Yes, and it is my husband's birthday today as well, stated Kagaya, and the goddess of the sun were surprised before she palmed her face. How could I forget about that? It is not your fault. Your mind is still sequencing the memories that were restored to you. Everything will be fine after a week or so, answered Kagaya, much to the relief of Amaterasu as shown by her facial reaction. Thank you, Oba-sama. What for? I haven't done anything. For letting me a part in all of this. Today, everything went according to the plan, and now, the rise of this holy empire has begun, firmly stated by Nero, and Lilith heartfully agreed with her. For the glory of God, the Emperor, and the Empire. When the Empire was revealed to the world, nothing changed, no reactions of surprise, there was nothing, it is as if the land where the Empire sat existence since the beginning. And it was everything that Naruto intended, as he did what only he can do. He altered reality. Limitless reality warping, the highest possible degree of manipulating reality, metaphysics, and causation with nothing but a thought. He did it as if it was nobody's business. He did it on a whim and ignored all the rules he made in the past like they never existed in the first place. He seemingly integrated the Empire's existence into the universe, and no supernatural beings outside his group knew about it. It was some years after the founding of the Holy Aetherian Empire when it began trading with the warring states of Japan. The empire traded with the clans and remained largely neutral in the affairs of the daimyos and the Emperor of Japan at the behest of Amaterasu, who wanted to wait everything out. The connection between the Holy Empire and Japan grew tremendously with the trading of goods and services because there was no language barrier, both countries spoke and wrote with same language and alphabet. The empire also introduced the Latin culture, courtesy of Nero, to the Japanese, to prepare them for the coming of the Western explorers, and while cautious, the clans accepted the knowledge imparted to them. But, there is another topic. The populace of the empire. The Aedra, subjects of the emperor, is a new race created by Naruto. They appear much like humans, however, they are not mortals. They are an immortal race much like angels, however, they do not have any kind of wings to give them flight, but their inhuman strength and magical prowess make up for it, and they are slow to reproduce, and this is due to their lifespan, which is eternal, to balance everything out. In truth, the Aedra were the prototype of the first humans Naruto wanted to create, hence the name, Aedra, which means, our ancestors. But he abandoned the idea at Kagaya's request. Therefore, the idea of this race has been inside Naruto's mind since the beginning, but never got the chance to make them, until the idea of an empire was brought to him by his family. They can only die if killed, and if they die outside the empire, their bodies would be immediately teleported back to the empire, and, if they die inside the empire and someone attempts to remove the body from the empire, it will also be teleported back to the empire. Lastly, if someone without knowing the proper spells that were specifically made for the task would try to remove any sample from the body for biological testing, it would backfire to the one attempting to remove any sample for DNA profiling and would result to his or her deaths. This was the precaution made by Naruto to prevent anyone, whether they are human or supernatural, to protect the secrets of the Aedra. It was also during this time when the empire began its trade with the Portuguese, when their ships were intercepted by the Holy Imperial Navy under Leviathan's command, who altered her name to Katarina Leviathan Otsutsuki Uzumaki, to make it less obvious with the name Leviathan. At first, the Portuguese were confused as the ships that intercepted them looked similar to the others back in Europe. They thought these were Spanish or Dutch ships, but it turned out to be the vast empire on the Far East other European nations have heard before. The rumors and evidence were scattered throughout the Western world by the members of Scathach's Holy Imperial Dragon Guard, the intelligence branch of the Empire's Holy Imperial Legion, who disguised themselves as merchants and travelers. Then came the Spanish, the Dutch, the French, and the English. The empire traded with the Chinese and Indians as well. The European powers tried to conquer some land in the empire, but this was immediately halted when the Holy Navy threatened to sink all the European ships inside the imperial waters, whether they are mercantile, exploring, or military. It was one of the few times the empire showed its entire naval fleet, fully armed, and ready for war, and the results ended rather well for the empire. There is also a population of yokai under the immediate rule of Amaterasu living in a special district Naruto made for them inside Aetherius, but they still answer to the absolute authority of the emperor. By having these yokai living inside the empire, Naruto had immediate access to Amaterasu, who still hasn't told her subjects in Takamagahara about her connection to empire, and this intrigued a certain goddess, Inari. Then he used the universal irreversibility to the very existence of the empire, so that no one, but him, can undo or alter the reality of the empire and its citizens. Only by using absolute restoration to the very existence of the universe would undo the existence of the empire, but only him can do so. Next, he imposed his will, the will of God, the absolute will, the divine will to the empire, so that it would never be destroyed. Whatever happens, the empire will always win whatever is thrown against it. Also, when the empire met the Portuguese and the Spanish, they were shocked to see that most of the population follows Roman Catholicism as well, but they also met the Shinto minority and planned to proselytize them, and when Naruto got a word of it, he immediately prevented them from doing such a thing, and because they are protected by imperial law. Soon, those missionaries returned to Europe, to the Papal States, to the Vatican, so that they may inquire for knowledge about the Catholic Church in the Holy Aetherian Empire, as they have never heard that Catholicism is part of the imperial society. But much to their surprise, the empire has 9 ecclesiastical provinces, 10 archdioceses, and 80 dioceses, the several suffragan dioceses included, as well as its own military ordinariate, Ordinariatus Militaris Sacrum Imperium Aetherium, the military ordinariate of the Holy Aetherian Empire for the Holy Imperial Legion. How did this happen when the empire had no prior contact and missionaries from Rome? Because he said so. Gnosokinesis. He created the knowledge of the existing Catholic Church in the empire and inserted the new knowledge into the universe, which allowed it to become an established fact and reality in all of the Vatican clergy, documents, and institutions, and the universe was none the wiser. Timeskip. The Emperor's Tower, the Empyrean Palace, the Imperial Palace District Inner Circle, 1550 AD. Naruto. I have some news, said Scathach after she entered Naruto's office. She saw behind Naruto is a large and wide window that shows the entire eastern view of the capital city. It was night and the city is all lighted up, and it was beautiful. Aside from that, Scathach now addresses Naruto commonly with his first name, because their relationship became closer, with the help of Lilith of course, and it was something that Kagaya was glad of. From where? Naruto asked as he looked up from his desk, writing some paperwork while he has clones reading reports across the world and empire while sitting on different chairs inside his office. Japan. A Jesuit missionary named Francisco Xavier from the Kingdom of Navarre has been living in there for more than a year now and has converted quite a number of the population already, a few thousand people at least. I didn't report it to you earlier because I thought Amaterasu already mentioned to you, she answered while Naruto raised an eyebrow. A Jesuit? That's a first one in this side of the world. What about him? I've heard from my agents that he has some intentions to go here, in the empire. Let him and his followers come. They can't be much worse than the Portuguese explorers that Leviathan intercepted with the navy, answered Naruto as he went on to look at the shining city behind him while sitting on his desk chair, something he hasn't used for a very long time. It was his chair when he was Hokage, and he preserved the chair inside his seals. His back facing the warrior queen. True, those missionaries won't gain anything. In fact, they might actually feel at home, said Scathach as she walked closer to Naruto. Maybe, but if they do come, make sure they are all watched. Just like those explorers from Portugal? She asked. Yes, just like them. Did Leviathan ever told you the reactions of those Portuguese sailors when they were intercepted by the navy? Naruto asked as Scathach as she went towards him and sat in the clear space on his desk, both looking at the night skyline of Aetherius. She did, and as I remember, she said those sailors were surprised to find a vast amount of ships that looked similar to European ships but didn't recognize our flags. They were also taken aback when they saw Leviathan, a woman, commanding the ships, and that our navy can speak their language. Must have been a shocking day for those explorers, to find a country far more civilized than any country in Europe in the Far East, said Naruto while he glanced at Scathach with a small smile gracing his face. The warrior queen stood up, then sat on Naruto's lap and laid her head back on his chest. What is it? Naruto asked. I'm pregnant. Oh, you too. You better take responsibility properly. Altria and I got impregnated during the same month. Seriously, you're insatiable, said Scathach while Naruto smirked as he caressed her long purple hair as her red eyes twinkled in delight. Do you remember that day, 6 years ago? Naruto asked as they both watched the capital city at night. I do, just like it was yesterday. Flashback. The Emperor's Observatory, the Empyrean Palace, 6 years ago, 1544 AD. It was a nice Friday evening. The people of the Empire and their families were having fun. Everything is peaceful, from all the cities of the Empire, from La Pucelle to Sansrator, from Arcturus to Aetherius, it was peaceful, but not everyone is in peace. There is one queen that felt conflicted inside, Scathach, the warrior queen. Her long purple hair danced with the wind as her red eyes watched the sprawling city from the top of the palace. She silently thought about the many things that happened in her life since he joined Naruto and helped him. Scathach, what are you doing up here? A voice asked from behind, and when she turned, she saw Lilith, wearing her silky nightgown that complemented her curvaceous body. I was just watching the city, it looks so beautiful. True enough, the greatest city in the world lives up to its title. Its concentric walls adorned by imperial banners showing the imperial standard and coat of arms are outlined by the lights where the honor guard patrols the city from above. Its buildings are unique from anywhere else in the world, everything looks perfect. It is, said Lilith as she leaned on the balcony and watched the city with Scathach where they remained silent for a few minutes. You still haven't asked father yet, it has been 6 years now since that day. Lilith broke the silence as they continued to watch the activity in the city below them. I don't know how to confront him about it, answered Scathach while watching the sprawling city below them. What? You're just going to say, I love you, and make me your own woman, to him like I and the others did, how hard could that be? You're a strong woman, little sister, you can do it. Try shouting at the top of your lungs that you love him, that could let out some steam. Scathach looked at Lilith incredulously with a raised eyebrow. Everyone is going to hear us if I shout, Lilith. Oh no, not at all, no one is going to hear us from here, we are far too high for the others below to hear us. Come on, try it, Lilith urged Scathach, but the warrior queen stood her ground. No way. Her answer was simple and firm, but Lilith has one more card to play. Well, I guess I'm just going to tell him about you and show him my memories, then we'll see. Lilith was about to leave with her teleportation spell, but Scathach immediately changed her mind. No, don't tell him. I'll do it. Lilith smirked inside her head while Scathach grew timid, quite unbecoming for a powerful warrior and queen. Really? Lilith asked with a smile, and for Scathach, that smile cannot be good, and dread began to fill her, but she said that she will do it, her already crushed pride be damned. Yes. Lilith's smile widened while Scathach tried her best to ignore the eldest daughter of Naruto, to no avail. All right then. Please shout as loud as you can, Queen of Shadows, Lilith said with mirth. Scathach glared at her but took a deep breath and in a few seconds, she shouted. I love you, Naruto Uzumaki. Lilith wanted to shout in happiness with Scathach's shout, why you ask? Because Naruto is standing right behind her. When were you going to tell me? Scathach's eyes widened as she suddenly felt his presence, she knew he wasn't there earlier. She was frozen on her spot, she couldn't move at all as Naruto's presence is overwhelming her. But she blushed heavily when she felt his strong arms around her and his chin above her head. His warmth overflooded her body and she melted into his embrace. Meanwhile, Lilith began to chuckle. See, that wasn't so hard now, said Lilith, while Scathach broke out of her trance and glared at her. You tricked me. Lilith's laughter grew louder. Now, none of that, Scathach. So, when were you going to tell me? Naruto whispered in her ears while the proud warrior queen was left in a blushing mess. I'll leave you two here, see you later, Dad, Scathach. With those words, Lilith vanished in a flash of light, leaving the two on their own. I'm not a very dense person, Scathach, said Naruto as held the warrior queen in his arms. Then you already knew about my feelings, said the queen, and she felt him nod. Naruto let go of her and grabbed her arms to face him. Then unexpectedly, he captured her lips with his own. Scathach's eyes widened, before giving in his kiss and returned it as much as she could. They broke out later with a thread of saliva connecting their lips. Scathach's blush deepened. That's me returning your feelings, said Naruto with a bright smile on his face while Scathach widened her eyes with tears of joy slowly coming out of them. Then, she threw her arms around him and pulled him down to kiss him again. Living forever is not bad, especially with the man I love, she thought as they made out at the top of the palace, with the moon shining down upon them. Flashback end. Living for eternity is not so bad, said Scathach as she changed her position. Now her body is facing Naruto and she leaned down to his chest while Naruto caressed her hair. Because you have us, you will never be alone, my dear. They are here for you, and I'm here for you, said Naruto, and Scathach looked towards his eyes with affection. She then captured his lips and they made love for the rest of the night. Time skip. Throne room, the Empyrean Palace, the Imperial Palace District Inner Circle, the 4th of June 1670 AD. Father, I bring a letter from France, said a young man as he kneeled in front of Naruto. At least in his early 20s, he has a lightly tanned skin, gray eyes, and medium-length white hair. He wore a blue armor with numerous metal plates which formed into protective metal guards along his body, with a distinctive white fur collar worn over a black low-collared, long-sleeved mantle that splits down the lower half, and black pants. On his right knee is a shuriken holster. He also has a black belt that carries several pouches containing his tools and other equipment on his back. On his left side, there is a katana sheathed, and on his right, a wakizashi. All of this are the standard issue by the Holy Imperial Dragon Guard, the secret intelligence division of the Holy Imperial Legion. But above it all is a white, long-sleeved trench coat with the symbol of the Uzumaki clan embroidered on the back with great red encircling it and Gai bold piercing the whirlpool upwards. The standard issue katana and wakizashi has the same motif, of the red dragon, great red. The suka has red samigawa and black silk suka ito. The brass suba has great red engraved on it. The same can be said for the kashira and the manuki. It also has a matching fiery red saya with black sagio. Noctis, what news do you bring? Naruto asked Prince Noctis Luce's Rizvam Lilith Uzumaki, his eldest son with Lilith, as the emperor sat on his golden throne with white accents. It is full of ornaments and has white, soft cushion for comfortable seating. The armrests have engravings of the many focal points in Naruto's life. His throne is also placed at the top of a staircase, so he is looking down at Noctis. Naruto wore a full-length maroon and white gown tied with a white sash, with a white haori over it. This was his everyday attire when going for a walk. He also has his customary maroon and white hat with the Uzumaki spiral at the triangular white foreground. Right now, a golden laurel wreath sits upon his head, just like the Romans and Greeks in the past. I shall read it at your Imperial Majesty's command. Naruto nearly sighed in exasperation. It seems Kagaya's lessons to Noctis went deeper than he thought, so he just let it go, motioned his hand to read what his son has to say, and with it, Noctis began reading the scroll on his hands. This was written by the Holy Aetherian Ambassador to France, Lord Lucius Antonius, and I quote. 3 VNVs Anno Dom N Noster SVCHR Street MDCLXX. Tertius Iunius, Anno Domini Nostri Iesu Christi, MDCLXX. I, Lucius Aurelius Antonius, 5th Knight Paladin of the Holy Imperial Dragon Guard, Ambassador of His Imperial Majesty to the Kingdom of France, writes to you, my Imperial Majesties, as I received intriguing news from the agents of the Holy Imperial Dragon Guard here in Paris. On the 1st of June, the year 1670, a secret treaty was signed by the kings of England and France at Dover in England. The main details of the treaty are written below. The King of England, Charles II, shall make a public profession of the Catholic faith, and in return, shall receive the sum of 2 million of crowns, to aid him in this project, from the Most Christian King, in the course of the next 6 months. The date of this declaration is left alone to his own pleasure. The King of France, Louis XIV, shall faithfully observe the Treaty of Aix-la-Chapelle, as regards the Kingdom of Spain, and the King of England will maintain the Treaty of the Triple Alliance in a similar manner. If new rights to the Spanish monarchy revert to the King of France, the King of England shall aid him in maintaining these rights. The two kings shall declare war against the United Provinces. The King of France shall attack them by land, and shall receive the help of 6,000 men from England. The King of England will send 50 men of war to sea, and the King of France 30, the combined fleets will be under the Duke of York's command. His Britannic Majesty shall be content to receive Walcheren, the mouth of the Scheldt, and the Isle of Cadzand, as his share of the conquered provinces. Separate articles shall provide for the interests of the Prince of Orange. The Treaty of Commerce, which has already begun, shall be concluded as promptly as possible. Your Imperial Majesties, I hope this letter reaches you with haste, and I hope that you may use the contents of this letter as you see fit. Yours in confidence by the grace of God, Lucius Aurelius Antonius, Ambassador of the Holy Etherean Empire to the Kingdom of France. Noctis finished reading the letter and he closed the scroll. Kagaya, who was sitting at Naruto's right-hand side, motioned Noctis to give her the scroll, and the young man gave it to her by walking up the steps and bowing before Kagaya. Lilith, who is sitting at Naruto's left-hand side, shook her head in amusement. Noctis, leave us for now, ordered Naruto, and the young man bowed and left the throne room in silence. Jean, Altria, what do you think? Kagaya asked the two who sat on her right side in their own respective thrones while reading the scroll for herself. Bad idea. That is what I think of this secret treaty of theirs. The political climate of Europe right now is terrible, answered Altria. True, but we can use to our advantage, said Jean while Altria nodded in agreement. She got what the Maid of Orleans is implying. Whoever wins or losses, we can profit with our traders and businesses in those places, stated Leviathan as she sat on Lilith's left-hand side, in her own throne. Exactly. While we are biding our time to reveal ourselves once more, we could continue playing politics with humans, to make the lives of our people better, stated by Jean. Our people live in the future. The technology here in the Empire are not supposed to exist yet. Our people also live much better than any humans on Earth, and they will never know that, as we have been isolating ourselves so that no foreigners would see how our cities look like, except the outskirts of the capital where they are received by our ports. Those foreigners would never set a foot in the capital or in any our cities. I am making sure of that, Mordred said as she sat on Jean's right-hand side on her own throne. And while they wage war against each other, we continue to prepare for our plans in the far future, said Nero, who sat on Leviathan's left-hand side, sitting on her own throne. Right, I'll have my agents continue observing and gathering intelligence for as long as possible, said Scathach, who sat on her own throne on Nero's left-hand side. Which means I shall also continue managing the ministries we've established, stated by Graphia as she sat on her own throne at Mordred's right-hand side. Then a magic circle appeared in the middle of the throne room, the magic circle of the imperial family. And it revealed a young man, the eldest son of Naruto with Leviathan. He has a medium-length white hair that is slicked back, lightly tanned skin, and most of all, his youthful appearance, plus his unique golden eyes. He is wearing a typical choir dress of a cardinal of the Catholic Church. Blood-like red cassock with red fascia around his waist. Above it is the white Catholic rochet reaching about the knee. The lower edge of the rochet and its sleeves are garnished with lace, lined with red silk. Above his chest is his gold pectoral cross suspended by a red and gold cord of silk. Atop his head is the usual scarlet zucchetto, and above it is a scarlet watered silk beretta. As he is indoors, if outdoors, he would be wearing his red galero. Father, the man said before he genuflected before the thrones. Aurelio, I heard you were in the Vatican, stated by Naruto, who leaned his back on the throne. I just returned, and I have some news from the inner sanctum of the Catholic Church and heaven, answered Aurelio. This is His Grand Eminence, Prince Aurelio Marco Levitico Leviathan Cardinal Uzumaki, Archbishop of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Aetherius, Vice-Chancellor of the Holy Imperial Elder Council, and a Prince of the Holy Etherean Empire. Though, as only a few know his age, he changes his name in the official records of the Vatican and the Catholic Church in the Empire, and has done the same thing thrice already. Currently, he is known in the Vatican as Cardinal Leviticus Uzumaki, and is likely to change it again in several years from now. What is it? Naruto asked. The shards of Excalibur has been reforged, through alchemy and magic, into 7 different holy swords. With that statement, Altria immediately turned her full attention to Aurelio, while the rest were intrigued, especially Mordred. What have they done? Altria muttered in anger. 7 swords for its 7 different powers: destruction, mimicry, heavenly flare, dreams, transparency, blessing, and control. And an appalling three-way deal was struck by the Catholic Church, the Church of England, and the Eastern Orthodox Church under the guidance of Michael to separate the possession of the swords. 3 for the Catholic Church, 2 for the Church of England, and 2 for the Eastern Orthodox Church. Well, at least they didn't make deals with Luther's hardline heretics. However, the Church of England might have been infiltrated by them. He trailed on, leading Naruto to speak. I sense something is wrong there. What happened? Aurelio scratched back of his before glancing towards Mordred before looking towards Naruto. Hector stole one of the swords and fled back to England. Mordred palmed her face while Naruto sighed. Hector is Mordred's eldest son with Naruto. That idiot. So that's what he's been doing since he left us, though how did you see him? Mordred asked while scratching the back of her head in annoyance. He called me with his beacon, and I met him within the ruins of the Domus Aurea. He was carrying the holy sword of control, Excalibur ruler. And when I met him, something about his presence feels different. What did his presence feel like? Altria asked. This was her grandson after all. He felt like he was dying, the same I feel with humans. Not surprising. After he pulled that stunt years ago with the Imperial Central System, he lost his divinity. He became mortal, stated Altria as she shook her head in disappointment while Mordred remained silent. Meanwhile, Naruto just sighed. He also said he has a family now, with 3 children, and they are carrying the last name, Pendragon, so that their connection to this family cannot be traced, and that he doesn't feel worthy of carrying our last name. Well, at least he knows his priorities. A pity that I will never see those grandkids of mine, Mordred said. Hector, 1st Earl of Pendragon, that is his name and official title now. His wife's name is Sophia Le Fay, the last descendant of Morgan Le Fay. After their marriage, she became Sophia, Countess of Pendragon, and they have 3 children, Gawain, Lancelot, and Vivian, and together, they've re-established the House of Pendragon of England. Now, that got the attention of both former Pendragons once more. Naruto was also intrigued. Morgan Le Fay, even in death, my sister is a pain on my backside. I never thought she would have descendants of her own, but it seems this woman is the last of her bloodline. And now, merged with my line through Mordred, they would have a powerful bloodline, Altria surmised while Mordred nodded in agreement. So, any other news that we need talk about? Naruto asked, and Aurelio nodded. Sophia had Caliburn in her possession. What? Altria and Mordred exclaimed at the same time. But she can't use it, so Hector made it his family's heirloom. Even though he can use it, he chose not to, because he knew he wasn't worthy to do so, ended Aurelio while the 2 Pendragons sighed in gratitude. Are there any more facts that we need to know? Asked Kagaya, but Aurelio shook his head. Not at the moment, and I shall go back to the Cathedral Basilica of the Holy Spear of Destiny. That was a mouthful. My paperwork is waiting for me, but if something comes from the Vatican, I shall send it to the Queen of Shadows immediately. With it, Aurelio vanished with the magic circle and left the throne room, leaving the elder members of the imperial family alone. That Hector, of all the women he could marry, by sheer coincidence, it has to be the last descendant of Morgana that has my first sword. What were the odds? And Excalibur, how could they do such a thing to my second sword? Altria said before she sighed in sadness. We'll see how their descendants would do in the future. Then, we'll retake all the Excalibur shards and I shall remake it into one, said Naruto while they all nodded in agreement. Timeskip. The Pendragon Amphitheater, the Imperial Palace District Inner Circle, 1779 AD. The Pendragon Amphitheater, obviously named after Altria and Mordred, is a very large, open-air circular amphitheater located on the north side of the Empyrean Palace and is not very far from the main entrance of the palace located on the west side of the palace. Aside from the walkways that connect all the places in the district, the highest level of the amphitheater is connected to the palace itself via a wide marble bridge for the imperial family's exclusive access. The amphitheater is used solely by the imperial family for training their skills in the open air, and it has an illusionary barrier around it to hide any evidence of magic use from the outside. It was made by Graphia, much like the other small to medium scale barriers in the Empire. Currently, Naruto is standing in the middle of the open ground with the sun shining above them. In front of him is a heavily panting Kurohime. She is being trained by Naruto on how to use her skills as a Yukai, as he has already taught her how to use Yujutsu and Senjutsu. She just needed to perfectly control her abilities, especially Senjutsu, and it is best done in a place surrounded by nature. Lucky for her, the imperial city of Aetherius may be a bustling city. It is also a green city as it is covered by many trees and other plants, giving the impression that the city was built to coexist with nature. How did I do, father? Kurohime asked. It has been approximately 100 years ago when she began to call him father, which is technically true, as Naruto made Kurohime his daughter by blood via magic, and it also increased her power. In the eyes of the Empire, she is Princess Kurohime Uzumaki, therefore, she said that she must use another name when she begins her travel to hide her connection to the imperial family. Fujimai, that is the name she has thought of using. You did well today, but as I always say, there is always room for improvement, praised Naruto with his usual bright smile, and the Nekosho blushed lightly. But I still have a long way to go to be ready to travel the world, she said, and Naruto nodded in agreement. Of course, but we still have at least 200 years until you plan to travel the world, so it is quite fine. Besides, Inari has taken a liking to you. Inari, another goddess from the Shinto faction, and the second deity outside of Amaterasu to know who the emperor truly is. She learned of Amaterasu's connection to the empire because she was very curious, and that she pestered Amaterasu so much in secret until the goddess of the sun gave up and told Inari who the emperor is, and as expected, she didn't believe her, until she was brought to the Empyrean Palace, and that was 150 years ago. Naruto had two choices when Inari was brought to the throne room by Amaterasu. One is to wipe out her memories, and two, restore her memories of him. Of course, his family counseled him to choose the second choice, as the first one would lead to ugly diplomatic relations in the future when he returns to the supernatural world, so he restored Inari's memories of him, and just like Amaterasu, she cried in front of him. And since then, Inari joined the imperial family in protecting the mortal world against rogue supernatural beings. They then opened a special academy for children who want to become mages in the outer circle of the Imperial Palace district. It is a heavily forested area and a perfect area to place a magic academy in plain sight. It was named the Holy Imperial Institute of the Arcane, or for short, the Imperial Arcane Institute. As Amaterasu doesn't have much job to do in Takamagahara besides managing the sun that shines on the east and ruling the Shinto heaven, as well as her subjects, she applied to be one of the professors of the academy, as it gave her another solid footing in the empire and it gets her closer to Naruto. Subsequently, she became the Archmagus, and Inari supporting her as the mistress of Incunabula, the keeper of knowledge, which provided Inari a solid cover when she is in the mortal world. Inari-sama is very generous, said Kurohime, while Naruto just smiled at her. That she is. Anyway, why don't you get some rest? Kurohime nodded and they both walked away from the ground to the exit, and there, they were met by Jean wearing her white battle dress with armor, and above it is her white and gold cloak with the imperial coat of arms embroidered on her back. Speaking of the imperial standard and coat of arms, it has an escutcheon with a golden crucifix on the middle, that has the insignia of the Uzumaki clan in the middle. In the top right corner contains the dove representation of the Holy Spirit with wings outstretched and an olive branch being held by its beak. There is also a light coming from behind and shining downwards to the opened Holy Bible underneath the dove. To the upper left contains a red dragon rampant, which represents Great Red holding two stone tablets containing the 10 Commandments represented by the Roman numerals I, 2, 3, IV, V written downwards on the first tablet, and V, 7, 8, X, and X written downwards on the second tablet. To the bottom right contains the Chi-Rho monogram with the Alpha Alpha and Omega Omega symbols accompanying it, and to the bottom left contains the golden scales of justice surrounded by a golden laurel wreath and accompanied by the holy sword Joyce, the sword of Charlemagne, and now, the sword of Jean. The sword hilt is also surrounded by the holy rosary, just like the way Jean's Joyce has a rosary tied on its hilt. The entire arms are surrounded by Naruto's royal red imperial mantle that is lined with golden magatamas on the edges and is topped by the holy imperial crown. The five-tiered heavily bejeweled tiara is topped by a small globe with a golden cross, sometimes called the quinregnum or the quintuple crown, which sits upon a golden imperial helmet which looks like a Roman centurion helmet with the red crest, but much more ornate and protective. Surrounding the shield is the chain and pendant of the Holy Order of the Spear of Destiny. It also has a golden vegetal compartment below the shield with the Guy bulb superimposed above the compartment horizontally. The shield is also supported on both sides by the two heavenly dragons, Didrag on the right side and Albion on the left side, and the two dragons are holding two different weapons. Didrag is wielding the Rongomyniad while Albion is wielding the Clarent, Mordred's sword. The two dragons wielding those two weapons alludes to one fact that only the elder members of the Imperial family know about, before the creation of the boosted gear and divine dividing. The two heavenly dragons sometimes chooses their own champions, and during the Battle of Camlan, Altria was